hockey fans, welcome back to the Oilers Fanatic. If this is your first visit to the channel, please consider liking and subscribing, and you can also follow along on Twitter and Instagram at Oilers Fanatic YT. There's a few things I wanted to discuss today, so let's get started. First up, the Oilers announced more cuts from training camp today. The following players were assigned to the Bakersfield Condors: Devin Brosseau, Matteo Gennaro, Yanni Kaldis, Dino Cambietz, Raphael Lavoie, Kirill Maximov, Ostap Safin, and Tim Soderlund. I know I butchered a few of those names. Returning to the Shawinigan Cataracts is Xavier Bourgault. As a result of Thursday's assignments, Edmonton's training camp roster now sits at 43 players, including 6 goaltenders, 15 defensemen, and 22 forwards. I know some fans felt Bourgault was ready, but I see no reason whatsoever for the Oilers to rush him. Let him dominate in junior this season, and at the very least, he should be headed to Bakersfield next season, with perhaps a shot at making the Oilers roster next year. Next up, this is how I see the Oilers roster for Game 1 of the regular season. I have a top line of Zach Hyman, Connor McDavid, and Jesse Puljujärvi, a second line of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Leon Draisaitl, and Kyler Yamamoto, a third line of Warren Foegele, Derek Ryan, and Zach Kassian, and a fourth line of Brendan Perlini, Ryan McLeod, and Colton Sceviour. I have Devin Shore and Kyle Turris as my 13th and 14th forward. On defense, I have Darnell Nurse and Tyson Barrie, Duncan Keith and Cody Ceci, Slater Cuckoo and Evan Bouchard, and Chris Russell as my 7th defenseman. In goal, I have Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. I think Josh Archibald will end up on long-term injured reserve for the season. We should know more on his situation soon, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was the final outcome. His likely absence for the season opens the door for players like Colton Sceviour and Kyle Turris. I have both players making the roster, with Sceviour obviously receiving a 1-year, $750K deal. The notable forwards not on this roster include Tyler Benson and Cooper Marody. I personally would like to see both of them on the roster. I just don't know where they would fit at this point. It's still early in the preseason, plenty of time for things to change, but I think Brendan Perlini has done everything you've asked of him to this point, and Kyle Turris and Colton Sceviour bring the veteran presence we know Dave Tippett likes. So do the Oilers let Benson and Marody go to the waiver wire? One of them maybe, but I have a feeling the other will be trade bait. Trust me, I know Tracy Lane on Twitter is by no means a source to rely on, but she did post the following, and it does make some sense. Her tweet read, "Oilers have had talks with Coyotes and tonight with the Sabres, looking for a draft pick for Benson." If Tyler Benson isn't going to make the roster, the Oilers should move him for a draft pick. They are in need of draft picks, and it would be very disappointing to watch another team grab Benson for free on the waiver wire at the end of camp. For Cooper Marody, I think he's less likely to fetch a return. It may be best to just take their chances, and if he clears, he can be used as a recall from Bakersfield when needed. I split up the 23-man roster with 14 forwards, 7 defensemen, and 2 goaltenders. The Oilers might choose to go 13 forwards and 8 defensemen instead, but for now I'll run with this. I don't see a scenario where they go with 3 goaltenders at this time. That was possible when Alex Stalock was going to be fighting for a spot, but I don't see the Oilers keeping Konovalov or Skinner up. There's no reason to. I have been very impressed with Konovalov's play so far, but to this point, I can't say he's done enough to replace Koskinen. Koskinen has looked good in limited play so far, and I think it would take a combination of Koskinen playing horrible and Konovalov dominating for Ilya to take his spot. Has Konovalov or Skinner showed well enough that you would consider running them in a tandem with Mike Smith this year and move Koskinen? Again, I'm going to say no. I think it's too soon for either of them to have that responsibility. If they fail, people will turn on them fast, and the organization could lose out on a promising young goalie just because they rush them. I would make Skinner and Konovalov the tandem in Bakersfield and have them split the games 50-50, unless their play dictates otherwise. If the Oilers move Koskinen, an NHL goalie needs to be coming in to replace him. Is there still a chance the Oilers make a move for Koskinen at the end of training camp? I'm not going to say there's zero chance. I still think at the end of the day, the Buffalo Sabres are the top contender. I know the Sabres clearly aren't reaching for a high benchmark, but going with Craig Anderson and Aaron Dell as your goaltending duo, two goalies who were third-string goalies last season, has to be demoralizing to the rest of their roster. We know Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet speculated recently that the Oilers are still in the goalie market, so it's something to keep an eye on. Could we see Mikko Koskinen and Tyler Benson packaged together in a deal? I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I think for now, though, Smith and Koskinen is the tandem we see. What do you guys think? Sound off in the comments below. Thanks as always for all your support and for checking out the channel. You've been watching the Oilers Fanatic. Thanks for being a fan. Catch you later, guys.